Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Hey Dale, what's going on?
Well, I really got a problem this evening. You know,
Uh-oh.
I go to these meetings and I come back with all this information, and then I mention these things, and then Mike reacts to it as most citizens would react to things, but he can't be at all these meetings. Tonight, it's going to seem more like the Dale and Dale show because
Mm.
there's a lot to tell you, and Mike's just some of the time, I'm sensitive to this. I don't want to do this to the guy, but some of
Well,
the you
wait a
don't
minute.
say.
I'll just get a picture, and we'll apply a filter to your voice, and you can be on the phone with Dale and
uh,
Dale live at the same time.
this is not my fault.
No,
Okay.
you remember that? Who is the radio host who is known for having long, drawn-out conversations with himself on the air, where he talks into the phone, and that comes over the, and he literally talks into the phone, and then he talks into the mic, answers himself, and he does it for 2 hours or something.
Well, it sounds a bit like that Charlie McCarthy thing where he was talking to a not a puppet, but
Man, yes, yes.
not a marionette. What the heck was that called?
One of
Oh,
a
everybody in
dummy.
the audience knows. We're the only ones who can't remember.
Yes, we're the dummies.
It's Alzheimer's. Okay, so speaking of that, okay, so Brady Adams died yesterday. Brady Adams was 70 years
Yes.
old. He was a patron of the arts. He was a really nice guy. He had Parkinson's disease, and he got to be just a little strange at the end. Oh, how can you say that? Well, look, we tell the truth on this show, and I remember once I went to go see Brady Adams about his bears, and he had a big place called the Bear Hotel where he would store all
Right.
this stuff. And he was talking about the bears, and so I made kind of the mistake of saying, well, what's the idea behind all these bears and putting them on motorcycles? And he said, well, one day, okay, the bears decided to go down to the lake with their motorcycles. Okay, bears on hogs. Yeah, okay. So I'm ready to go on, and but there's more. So they went down to the lake on their motorcycles, and a bunch of them got together, and they saw all the fish there. There were many kinds of fish, especially rainbow trout. I'm like, okay, well, thank you, Brett. Now, wait, there's a little bit more. And so when the bears got together, the more of them that got together, the hungrier they got for reasons that I'll explain later. Oh, gee, I hope not. And then the bears said, "Oh, good, here are the kids with the lunch." And by now, I'm thinking, Brady, this is a pretty detailed story about these bears. And when the kids showed up for lunch, I'm thinking, okay, good, this story is going to take a really interesting turn, and the bears are going to eat the children. That would be great. Okay, no, but and I said something to her. Did they eat the children? Kind of like, come on now, Brady, let's make it a little more interesting. It was, no, they sat down and had a tea party. Well, let me just
Well,
put it this
yes,
way.
but
Let me
but they
just put
were
it this
also
way.
riding down to the river on their hogs.
Oh,
So, I mean, that does kind of take it into the realm where the likelihood of a tea party breaking out's a little higher.
it's, it just, let me just put it this way. That story went on for about 20 more minutes about the bears, about their motorcycles, about the children, about kittens, and, by now I'm fantasizing of what they're going to do with the kittens, put them in the spokes. I mean, just anything to bring it up from the level of Mr. Rogers. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It was just a little too much, and it had so many details. I'm thinking, is this guy making it up as we're sitting here, or is this, something it was a long, drawn-out story
Yeah,
that
maybe he was writing a children's book or something,
it kind of seemed that way, except there was no book.
Ah, I see. Well,
That
have
was
you ever
great.
been to the Bear Hotel? Have you been there?
I have, yes, several
Yeah.
times, and it's
Yeah,
a
I
pretty interesting place.
Yeah, there was a graduation ceremony for my kids' school that was being held there, and that was very interesting. Quite a place with all those bears that we used to see on the street hanging out.
It He's a prince of a guy. He was, okay, and a wonderful person, and a good heart, and a patron of the arts. and a little bit frayed at the edges. Okay, that's truthful. Frayed at the edges. So don't be afraid of this. Sorry. Doreen Ferguson is leaving county employment. She's head of the Parks Department, and we just found out today. You're hearing it here exclusively. Yeah, that's why you watch this show, because we tell you stuff you're not going to see any other place. And she's going to be leaving at the end of this month, so this is kind of sudden. And all of a sudden, the commissioners were talking about this. It's not like they made an announcement or something. They just said, yeah, what are we going to do about Doreen? I'm thinking, what are we going to do about Doreen? What does that mean? Because I know they haven't discussed this before. Yeah, well, the replacement for, and I'm the replacement? So they knew. How did they know? Well, I'm assuming that they all got an email from Doreen Ferguson, head of the Parks Director, saying, I'm leaving, goodbye. Why is she leaving? I don't know. I talked with Keith Heck afterwards, and if you can believe Keith Heck, yeah, well, I wouldn't bet my life on it, but he says it's a personal thing. Okay, you know, wait a minute. That's an odd noise there in the background. Is your wife practicing the oboe again?
No, that's my phone vibrating on the countertop here.
Oh, okay. All right. So, Oregon Lifeguard. Oregon Lifeguard is apparently, actually, it's true, they're the air ambulance people. They were trying to have some kind of competition with Mercy Flights that's out of Jackson County. Now, this story was in the Daily Courier today. You recall, because you loyally watch this show, that we announced this a whole week ago. And we heard it from Dennis Hoke, who is he's the fire chief out in IV. I was at the meeting where we asked some questions of Cheryl Walker and Larry Graves about this manor development out at the airport, the guys that were supposed to be hosting the building of drones at the airport, and what's going to happen now that they haven't paid anything. You know, oh, everything's just fine. Wow, it's better than ever. No, it's not. So, you know, and so trying to get them to be honest. And before the meeting started, I talked with Chief Hoke, who's kind of friendly, because, you know, we did try to settle this argument. It was a real argument that he was having with Cheryl Walker. And she said he's trying to build an empire out there, maybe a redwood empire. So he told us exclusively that that these guys were going to be leaving to move to Tillamook. Tillamook.
They have great cheese there.
Yeah, I've been there, and they've got a pretty nice little. Well, it's not little. It's a very big but scantily clad air museum there. But Tillamook can't be anywhere near the same population that we have. I mean, unless you're going to pick up cows and move them from one place to another in an air ambulance. Anyway, so he told us that this was going to happen and that they were moving to Tillamook. And so we talked about it immediately on our show. Well, here's a week later, and now the Daily Courier is reporting it. What happened a couple of days later, though, kind of made me glad that I had said who the source was, because Cheryl Walker, as a county commissioner, says, well, you know, just in case anybody's wondering, they're not moving. They just have a helicopter whose engine is broken, and they're staying. Okay, well, that's two different versions of the story. Now it turns out that the air ambulance guys, Oregon Lifeguard, are saying, by the way, there was a rumor out there that our helicopter was broken, but it wasn't, and it had nothing to do with the engine. Oh, thanks, Cheryl. Depending on who's truthful, also it's in the Courier. You know, how much of that can you believe? And, you know, because they're well known for their journalistic integrity. And she had said they weren't leaving in the engine problems. These guys have confirmed that they are leaving, and there were no engine problems. Thanks, Cheryl Walker. So
always nice to get the straight dope.
Yeah, well, okay. Also, it's nice to be able to remember to mention your sources rather than saying, we're declaring this. Yeah. That's not going to work out so good for you. Speaking of declaring things, in case you missed it, we did say that we have heard that Simon Hare has declared in the past that the levy, see, this is a potpourri today, potpourri here for you, that definitely the levy would pass, and it was going to pass, it's going to be overwhelming vote. And just a couple of days ago, I spoke with him in the hallway and asked him if he still felt that way, and he says, no, it's about 50-50. 50-50. That's quite a drop from 100% surety down to 50-50 surety. And we know, as of today, that SOS's newest guess probably happened an hour ago, was Cheryl Walker, who was coming in as a county commissioner to give them SOS, at least it was listed on their Here's Who's Coming list, to give them, to let them all know how little the county commissioners are involved in trying to pass the levy. Good comment. Okay, so what else is there for him to say? I'm sorry, it's all me today. Okay, IVCDO.
Well, complete disclosure here, I caught about half of that. So.
Oh, nice. Well, so did our audience. So
yeah, okay.
So the IVCDO, the Illinois Valley Community Development Organization, these were the people who brought to you as many as 214 full-time family wage jobs that are permanent for building a couple of wheelchair ramps in a state park. If the county will just give them the money, please just give us the money. We'll spend it as responsibly as the commissioners. They didn't say that, but it turns out that that's true. They're every bit as responsible or irresponsible as the commissioners were, because they put in the form saying this is what's going to happen. The commissioners were, wow, that sure sounds smart. Way, yes, we trust people that say such things, and we're going to give them the money just like they did Mark Van Holly. Okay, it wasn't that Cheryl Walker didn't trust Mark Van Holly. She wanted so ready to get the same deal where, oh, let's change the contract. Well, let's just try to do something and still get paid for it. It's a wonderful deal if you can get it. So
yes.
Then the IVCDO came back with, and here's Mike's part of the show, they came back with what kind of deal, Mike?
Well, they came back with a proposal to put a plaque on a rock.
I like your timing on that one.
Oh, and of course that's going to create 90 full-time family wage jobs. I don't know where they, I want to see the calculator they're doing this math on, because this is it's unreal.
So we had said, if you're going to do that, put up 100 plaques, and then you'll end up with 9,000 permanent family jobs.
Yes, I mean, we've been dealing with this conundrum. How are we going to solve this problem, since everybody says, and we all agree, that timber is never, ever, ever, ever coming back again, and so we have to come up with something to fill that gap. Well, clearly it's wheelchair ramps and rock plaques, or plaques on rocks.
Now, did you guys see that? Never, ever, ever. So we all have to do that in unison, kind of. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Never, ever, ever, ever.
Well, I'm just so sick of hearing it. It's like, what? From your mouth to God's ears. No wonder why, we're never getting anything like that coming back, because everybody is resigned.
I wish they would. I wish they would. Oh, please, yes. Don't tease me, Mike. Yes. Everyone has resigned. Everyone is resigned. Okay, so we got the latest news today from the general discussion that IVCDO is back, fresh from their world tour, and if they're being rewarded for their honesty and how well they mesh with the kind of thinking the county commissioners have, and they would like $25,000 more. Oh my God. which they approved today, so they could put it on a revolving loan fund to hand out to other similar projects that make just as much sense as they do.
Uh, who who amongst the IVCDO has, you know, incriminating photographs of people on the board? I mean, this is just it is just getting absurd. It
They're
was
being
already absurd. It's becoming more absurd.
they're being rewarded for deception. Ooh, those are strong words. Oh no. They deceived the commissioners, or tried to deceive all of us. They're being rewarded for that. And they did it once, worked so well, they're doing it again.
Well, wait a minute. What I want to know is the plaque on the rock yet? Are the wheelchair ramps in place? And have the workers begun to file into place? What's going on with that?
We don't even know, and one of the reasons that we don't know, great question, Mike, one of the reasons we don't know is
Should have a report on that.
it got so much flack from the public for the 214, up to 214 family wage jobs, that the commissioners decided they weren't going to talk about it in public anymore.
Naturally. Well, I think, you know, we should probably either do it ourselves or assign somebody to go out and take a picture of the wheelchair ramp so that we can post it. That and the plaque, we have to have a picture of this plaque on the rock because we've been giving it a lot of airtime.
Well, by now it may be a plaque on the side of a building or the plaque on the side of a grand dam or something. I'm talking about the kind of dam that holds back water, not large ladies. This is, well, it's my personal opinion, this is lunacy, and these commissioners, as far as economic development, can never live this down. And of course they don't want to talk about it in public. Well, okay, but Simon here did have a couple of questions about this $25,000 to give to these guys at IVCDO. He didn't have any questions about their honesty, because that's beyond reproach, of course. No, he did have a question about, well, see, as it turns out, the IVCDO, the Community Development Organization, is, they say, the only one of its kind left in the country. Thank God for that. And apparently, in order to continue being this CDO that's recognized by the federal government, and then I think eligible for grants or something like that, in order to be recognized by them and to continue as this federally recognized group, they have to go beyond just being the IV something or other into being a more like a county-wide something or other. And so Simon Hare had a question about that. Well, isn't people's perception, well, perception is reality, as the police chief will tell you, isn't the public's perception that this is a Cave Junction or Illinois Valley group? And Cheryl had a ready answer for that. She says, they've branched out. Oh. And now they're involved in the entire county. Oh. So in what ways, well, how are the many ways that they're involved with the entire county? Well, you know how most restaurants fail in their very first year? 80% of restaurants fail in their very first year. At least that's the statistics that we've heard in the past. Well, the IVCDO has apparently made a loan to a restaurant in Grants Pass. Well, that makes them now county-wide because they did this one thing. Now, this is according to the commissioners. Cheryl Walker beaming with pride. They've done this one thing, and that makes them county-wide.
You don't know what restaurant it is, do you?
No, they don't talk about such things. No, we don't even know if the restaurant exists. But, why bother investing in something as flighty as a restaurant? Why not just put a plaque on the side of any random rock that you pick inside Grants Pass? You can say, look, we're county-wide now.
Yeah.
One project makes you county-wide.
Well, you know what? I mean, is there no one else? Is there no other candidate available as a target for this economic development money? I mean, is it this bad?
No, but there's no other candidates that are favorites of Cheryl Walker's. I mean, you've got So Ready, you've got IVCDO. I mean, if you're going to pick somebody that matches the economic acumen of Cheryl Walker, it's got to be people that make promises and then don't follow through. It's got to be people that come in and give you the biggest bunch of bull you've heard in your life. And, well, Mark Van Holly used to be the head of So Ready. Now he's persona non grata because he's no longer the head of So Ready, and he's trying to do something competing with them. And so if you turn in your forms and it says on there, this is going to create 1 million new jobs, you're Cheryl Walker's best friend, right?
Yep.
And doesn't it match with the kind of stuff they tell us all the time? Why, Mr. Matthews, you certainly don't know what you're talking about, and you do not understand economic development. She said that to me at a public meeting. You obviously don't understand. She was even on Bill Meyer's show. She even tried to convince Bill Meyer on his own show, people just don't understand. Yeah, they sure don't understand you, Cheryl. They sure don't.
Yeah, there was a couple of chuckles after the fact there. Bill wasn't buying into it, and I mean, how could you? Of course, it's an absurd claim, but there's some people that buy into these metrics that they claim to have, and like if you do this, and this adds up to this many full-time family wage jobs that are permanent. It's absurd to any thinking person, but apparently not to Cheryl Walker or these other people who are slinging bull that she's buying into. Well, and she can't be the only one. Then it has to be two, at least two.
At least two, and they're the three. Every time they've decided about the IVCDO, it's unanimous. Okay, and it's interesting to me how statistics make no difference to a lot of people unless there's statistics to give away the money to something ridiculous. Otherwise, don't ask us to defend our vote for the levy based on statistics. I can't say that word today. Based on these numbers, because we're never going to base it on numbers. Well, we're going to ask you for stuff where we have absolutely no proof, but we're going to scare the daylights out of you, and then based on your perception of what we've just now told you, then you're going to vote for it, right?
Yes. And speaking of such things, I believe right now, even as we speak, Cheryl is the featured speaker at the SOS meeting there.
I believe that started at 5:30, and so she may still be talking. That's certainly true. And also speaking of the levy, don't forget tomorrow's Wednesday. The things you learn on this show. Tomorrow's Wednesday, and Wednesday evening, see, once a month the county commissioners meet in the evening at 5:30, and it's going to be the first item on the agenda, so you got to rush on down there and be there. This Wednesday and next Wednesday, that's your last chance to say something at a weekly business session of the Board of County Commissioners before they say no more speaking or it's called electioneering.
Oh, gotcha.
Want to explain that just a little bit to some people?
Well, right. Yeah. So, how long is it before? Is it a month? Oh, I'm sorry. It's a couple of weeks before the election.
It's once the ballots start going out. So
gotcha.
It's April. So it's this Wednesday and next Wednesday. Your last chance. If you're going to say something at a weekly business session, you have to do it tomorrow, or next Wednesday the 15th, or forever hold your peace until after the levy vote. So if you've got something to say, positive or negative, about the levy, you better do it coming up really soon. And why don't you tell them about this electioneering thing, Mike, if you don't mind?
Well, it's a law. Once the ballots go out, you can't lobby for support for anything that's on the ballot after the ballots go out, and you have a fantastic opportunity here this Wednesday because there's literally almost zip on the agenda. In other words, it's almost immediately going to be the best part of any weekly business session, and that is the public comment section of the agenda.
Now, you can't advocate for or against any kind of thing that's on the ballot once the ballots are out, but only when you're within a 100-yard circle. A 100-yard circle, a 100-foot circle? When you're within a circle from the ballot drop-off stations, and there's one on the side of the courthouse which faces the Ann Basker Auditorium. And we actually had a circle drawn on an aerial photograph which shows you how far into that building it extends. So the truth is that you're not even supposed to. It's law. I mean, we obey the law, even if Keith Heck is yelling, "I know we're breaking the law and I don't care." And even when Simon Hare says, "Well, I think we're going to allow this." No. You can park across the street with a bumper sticker across the street from the Ann Basker. You can't park, because that's where the circle ends, you can't park on the side of the street that's in front of the Ann Basker. Really? Yeah. That's right. So
even if it's further down the street?
Further down the street, yes, but you can't park right in front of the Ann Basker because that's where this imaginary circle ends. And so, to be honest, you're not supposed to have signs or be wearing a T-shirt or a button or talk about the pluses and minuses of that thing. You can't even do it within the courthouse at all in any room. So that'll be interesting to see if the commissioners do decide to do that anyway, because they break the law.
How far into that building does this said circle extend? I'm just thinking of a comical such situation that could occur.
Well, maybe you're thinking perhaps you can go into the Ann Basker. You can't do it in the courthouse at all, but you can go into the Ann Basker and jet over to the upper right-hand corner and stand there wearing a T-shirt, but then people in the room could see you. And so I'm not sure. Well, speaking of that, by the way, there's another thing that happened that, see, we can't do stories about this because this story is too small. When you walk in the front door of the Ann Basker and look just to the left, there is a little kitchen area. And traditionally, Sandy Casanelli likes to go and sit in there where she can watch the meeting, but where she can, like, oh my gosh, and do her little, because of what they're saying. I don't think she actually does that. I'm exaggerating just a little bit, but she usually sits in there. And there's also been a table and a couple of chairs, like at a soda fountain kind of chairs, in the actual lobby itself. And so you can sit back there, you can hear very clearly, and you don't have to mix in with the rest of the crowd. Well, for some reason they took out the table and chairs. Why? Why? I think it's because they know Sandy sits back there, and they hate Sandy. We hate that Sandy Casanelli. She voted no 10% of the time, and so we're going to call her.
They don't like it.
No, and so she was back in that little room. So we walk in. You were there. We walk in a couple of weeks ago, and there's a chain. There's a chain of death across. And right behind it is the whole kitchen area, right? And it's got this
authorized personnel only, or
right, authorized to use the kitchen. She wasn't cooking things in there. She was just sitting.
And there really isn't any. There isn't a kitchen there. I don't know how it has the kitchen.
There's a sink or something.
Okay.
There's nothing, okay, and then there's a little partition thing where you can open it up and look, and you don't make a lot of noise, and nobody ever hears it, and you're sitting there and you're watching it and you're listening, okay. So they put the chain across there, and so Sandy came by, and I think it's wonderful. She just took the little chain down. She didn't just demolish it. She didn't brush through it. She just unhooked it and then went in and sat in there. Now, not only does it have a chain, get this, they put a padlock on the partition door, partition window, a padlock.
Yes.
What in the world what's the matter with you guys? Really?
Vindictive, and just this is the type of attitude that we've discussed on this show a number of times. Public servants just sad that we can't have people. You know what I mean? People who think like that should be fired on the spot. Really,
Absolutely. A
that
padlock, really?
that can't be civil. Listen, nobody was hurting anybody back there, but to be fair, we were kind of having a good time.
Well,
And
you were laughing. See, there's the
yes,
problem.
yes.
Especially Keith Heck would find this very. I'm sitting in the front row, and he says, well, the commissioners just want you to know we're not involved in any way with this levy. Well, we've got the video. So I'm laughing to myself. You can probably see me going.
No, you were chortling.
I wasn't making any noise. Even the camera, which is right next to me, couldn't pick up any noise at all. And if Mark Seligman sits next to me, you can hear him, except through his nose. I can't do that through my nose. But I mean, Mark's got sometimes a breathing problem or whatever. I guess it is. I mean, he's a nice guy, but And so I say, Mark, I'm sorry, buddy, but it's coming out on the tape. Can you move over just a little bit? It's so rude even to ask, but I mean, you'd hear just nothing but if he sat next to me where he sometimes sits. And so you can't hear me. I'm not even making any noise. Well, you're going to be removed from this room. Hey, just, settle down, bud. What's your problem? Yeah. You guys aren't back there making noise or cutting up, but they can probably see that you're laughing at them.
Yes.
And this just drives Keith Heck crazy. That's what happened to him. Mike, do you have, speaking of driving crazy and people overreacting, do you have that video?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I'm going to set up this video. Every year I go to this is a long list of stuff tonight. Every year I go, and once you know, if we're going to play video, it features me. It's my voice. I can't help it. Okay, I'm at the meetings. Every year I go to the Elected Officials Compensation Committee. Elected Officials Think about this for a second. It's the committee that gets together that reports back to the Budget Committee. Should your elected officials get a big raise? Shouldn't they get a big raise? Haven't they deserved that? Think of all the things that they're doing for you. And these people then get together in a think tank and they, well, how much of a raise should we give to the county commissioners? Boy, they sure do deserve one. And it's very interesting that when you go into that little room, it's room 157, and it's got just over to the right, it's got this seating area where the elected officials come. They pack that little area back there to find out if they're going to get a raise this time. But it's interesting, there are those who sit back there like Connie Roach, who's a big proponent. She's one of the biggest proponents for this levy. People really ought to do this. She was one of the people that tried to stop Joseph Rice's presentation to the Republicans. I'm not telling the truth and all this. Okay, so she's back there. You've got Wally Hicks was there. Simon Hare was there. Traditionally, you have all of the major players who are there to get their raises, to find out what they're, and to have something to say about why they deserve raises. But they get around this little corner, and when you turn the camera, you can't even really see half of them, because they're in this little, and they like to kind of be back over there. I mean, they want to make comments, but then again, they kind of like to try to make it from around the corner. I really think that we know who's that speaking. Well, never mind who it is, but just, yeah, right. Okay, so they're there, and they're very, very, very busy people, but they've always got time to listen to, to tell you why they deserve raises. Now, Larry West is the guy that said, the Daily Courier is the best newspaper in the world. Larry, this disqualifies you for any kind of position from now on, just based on that statement, okay? All right, and Larry West is the one that says, point of order, Mr. Chair, at the weekly business session. Yes, well, we don't allow, I have a point of order, it's very important. Okay, what? That's not a podium, it's a lectern. Larry, leave this room and never come back, please. I mean, that's what I'd say. Anyway, so Larry West is the one that says, the county needs its own website. Larry, no, they need a website. Larry, and it should be saying the good things about the county, because there's another website out there which shall remain nameless that's saying bad things about the county, and you need to counter that. Larry, sit down, would you please? Jeez. So, and he said that as from the EOCC last time. Elected Officials Compensation Committee. So Larry's the chair. He's elected the chair. Of course he's elected the chair. And he's there running the show, and the person that you'll see in the foreground is J.J. Scofield, the guy that until recently has been coming forward to the commissioners and asking for more people to be hired and raises to take place. To be fair, the actual thing is some of these people are replacing those who are left. But since we're hanging on by our fiscal fingertips, I ask you, wouldn't it make more sense to let some attrition take place and to not be hiring on, oh, but it's in the budget. It's in the budget, Dale. Don't you understand the budget? It's the magical budget that can always pay for anything that we want. So the budget committee is really, really important. So every year I go and I try to say something about comparator counties. Sorry, it's such a long lead-in. But the idea is that when the county compares its payment structure for elected officials, and part of their reason is we've got to pay really good salaries because then we won't get good quality elected officials. I just don't know where to start with it. Yeah. Whoa, that's the problem. We're not paying enough money.
That's
right?
working out great right now.
Oh, and the charter says you can be paid a maximum of $30,000, which none of them are being paid, but somehow that hasn't ended up with so much better elected officials. So Larry is there, and so every year I go and I say, just to, you know, since there's one person in the audience, that's just me, I say, now, this is a new compensation committee. Have you considered basing your comparator counties on people with a similar income, no matter what's their size? What difference does it make whether they're bigger or smaller than we are? It should be based on, shouldn't it be based on income in the community, and can we afford highly paid executives running this place? So here's the video with my couple of questions.
You've been handed out a number of documents in this meeting. You are an official committee of the county. When will those documents be available and how to the public?
Well, they'll probably put on the website. They can always be, some of these are wage studies, and wage studies are permanent records of the county. So
when will these documents be available to the public? When and how?
You can always do any public records request to get any of these. They are public records. I don't know if they will be put on the website as part of this committee's or not, but they are always available via any public records request.
The tradition is with county committees that they are required to make this information available to the public without us having to search for it. I would like to specifically request that all documents handed out to this committee be available as a package and immediately available to the public. Should have been before you met.
We never have presentation materials before meetings, but I appreciate your feedback and we'll take it into consideration.
Okay. Second thing I'd like to bring up is, are you as committee members aware that the committee members from before, a number of them quit en masse? Do you know why they quit?
Yeah.
Do the other two members know why they quit?
Not when I found why they quit.
Okay, well, you might be concerned because BadCounty.com talked with two of them, and they indicated that the reason why they quit
Hey, Dale,
was...
This actually isn't an opportunity for you to...
Oh, it's not an opportunity to say anything?
Website. If
Okay.
you'd like to talk about the committee, we're happy to take your comments.
Other people did make comments, so I'm not allowed to do the same?
If you would like to make comments about the committee,
I'm
I'm
making
happy to
comments
listen to
about
you,
this
but
committee.
you are making an advertisement for your own
No,
private blog.
no, that's not the
And I'm
reason.
not going to
I'm
let
just
you...
telling, I don't think it's up to you. I think it's up to the chair. And second, I'm telling you how I can verify what they did because they talked to us. It's not an advertisement for a non-commercial website. It is telling you where the information came from. If you don't like it, we can talk about it outdoors. What they told us was the reason they quit was that they were not happy with the comparator counties and how they were chosen.
Well, I'm actually going to stop you right there as well, Dale, because I specifically spoke with all of the committee members, and what you just said, although it may be true for a couple of them, it is absolutely not true for all of them.
Okay,
So
I just mentioned two.
Honest, I think we're done listening to you
I'm
for
honest,
today.
and I said two of them said that, and that's not being dishonest. So don't mischaracterize what I'm
Let me
saying.
interject right here, because I
Yes.
missed 5 years of these meetings.
Right.
And hopefully they quit because of me. because when it came open for the public forum, I jumped on those people. And the reason why, they were coming off the wall with policy recommendations that had nothing to do whatsoever with comparables. And if they quit because of that, then I'm a happy guy. But for any other reason, I care less. What I do care about is just this particular committee, and are we doing the scope of work and the job that we were volunteered for. And we're staying right within those confines.
Okay.
As it is, we got out a little bit, and thank goodness Simon Hare reminded us of that. Because our entire job is to advise and recommend. And this is nothing but homework. This data is all it is. Our job is to analyze it as best we can to help the commissioners. We have no authority whatsoever.
So I have tried to share with you about why they quit.
Okay.
J.J. Scofield tried to stop me, and if you want me to stop saying this, then I can stop. But what I'd like to point out to you is their main point that they told us was that they felt that the comparator county should be compared by income and not by population, similar to comparing, let's say, Newport Beach with Oxnard. That the idea is not to compare by just your population, but by whether you can afford to do these things so that the elected officials in that area are being paid something comparable to what everybody else in that area is being paid. And that's the way they told us, despite what JJ may have to say about why they wanted to quit.
Yeah.
That was pretty dramatic.
Yeah, you want to take it outside? He stopped. You know.
Yeah, because Dale was gonna take that guy out, man.
Yeah, me. Right. The thing is, he's not even a member of this committee. Oh, I'm going to stop you right there. Yeah, sure you are. Okay, and they are required to make these materials. Why do we have to go search for the stuff upon which they base their answers? Where is this material so that we can see? We're the citizens. We have some interest in whether elected officials are going to get raises, right? And so
Yes.
This blathery explanation from Larry West. Larry, oh, I hope they left because of me. And, you know, I would, but that's a ridiculous. After this thing was over, I'm walking out, and there were the two ladies who were there, the lady that didn't look very pleased and the one that kept smiling about everything I was saying. And I said, gee, I hope that wasn't too confrontational, ladies, but, you know, I think that we do need access to these documents, and it's a good thing, in my opinion, for you to know. And the not so happy lady said, you know, Dale, you could attract a lot more flies with honey instead of vinegar. Well, I had two answers. One, pretty obvious, I'm not interested in flies. And the second one was, you know, I didn't hear you saying this to J.J. Scofield when he was jumping all over me and trying to stop me at your meeting.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. How in many cases your accepted crowd gets special treatment, and you know, the general public doesn't. Or, you know, I mean, this just applies across the board. There's a whole bunch of different categories of groups or whatever that. You know, if you're PC, then hey, you're okay. If you're, you know, radical and traditional, well, then you're to be looked down upon, and that's you know, it's interesting that you had, because I knew Larry is in the tank for government. Anything they're doing is cool with him. But you know, apparently they had some other gal there that was kind of in the tank for him too. Shocking that they would choose people like that to decide whether or not they get a raise.
Well, they've suggested that the commissioners and other elected officials should get a raise. Why? They deserve a raise.
Yes, yes.
Now, I was
Because of all
talking.
the good work.
I was talking today with one of our friends, and she said, you know, well, yeah, I guess they decided to give them a 1% raise. Look, a 1% raise isn't that much, but think about this just for a little bit. What would be the purpose of giving elected officials a 1% raise? I think the analysis of this would be that the purpose is so the commissioners can say, so the budget committee can say, oh, no, 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 that's okay. We're in solidarity with the rest of the community, and we're going to sacrifice a 1% raise. And we're fiscally conservative, and so we'll say no to that. Thank you for the thought, because we really deserve it. But you know, because they argued for it, they talked a lot longer than I did without any questions at all. They just were making these, oh, whoa, but this is their chance. This is my opinion. This is their chance to be noble. Oh, but thank you for asking, because, you know, the red, white, and blue, oh, get out. Now, you can see this video again and again and again on our website. And feel free to come and take a look at it. It's the Elected Officials Compensation Committee. And the title of the thing is, why is J.J. Scofield so intent on stopping public comment about raises for elected officials? Why was he continually trying? I'm going to stop you right there. And I don't know if you caught that, but he says, you know, when you're lying, that's not true, J.J. Scofield. Okay, so today's show is going just a little bit longer because I'm having such a fun time doing most of the talking. I went down and saw the new district attorney, Ryan Mulkins, today.
Mm-hmm.
I had called him because our previous district attorney, you may recall that there was a little tussle with Keith Heck in the lobby in the padlocked, not in the padlocked area, and out in the general area of the lobby with Keith Heck. I kept my voice quite low, a lot lower than this, and I wasn't angry and I wasn't yelling. And Keith Heck decided to assault me. He was pushing me with his belly, and if you've ever been pushed by Keith Heck's belly, you would remember it. And this was the time where he and Simon Hare were talking with this fellow who wanted to be on a committee. It was so discouraging to see this again, because how many times have we told these guys? And I said it just like this, gentlemen, it's against the law for you to talk about county business with anybody whatsoever. And I said it just like that. I wasn't yelling it at the top of my lungs. Keith Heck's impression was somehow he told the police I was yelling. Keith Heck thought that Judy Aarons was yelling at that meeting where she was trying to put up a phone number so if people can't hear. He thought she was yelling. So his perception was that I was yelling, that I was ignorant and abusive and terrible guy and just couldn't be shut up and everything, and he needed to shut me up, right? And so, but somehow, even though he was pressed right up against me and pushing into me, we never touched. And Terry Wharton, Secretary Terry Wharton, she told the police, well, they never touched. And this guy that used to be, I don't even remember what he was, but well, they never touched. Well, you know, it's three people who have lied to the police against me. You know, how big of a federal case are you going to make out of this? So when I asked the previous DA, you know, I put in a police report and I never got a chance to see it. And the police say, oh, the proper thing to do is to ask the DA for this. And so, can I get a copy? And he says, no. But I put it in the report, and the police say I have to only get it from you. Nope, that's not going to be possible. We're not going to give you a copy of the report. Why the heck would you? Whatever. So I called this guy, this new DA, Ryan Mulkins, and hello, Dale Matthews. Yes, he didn't know who I am. And I said, I put in this police report. I wonder if you can get a copy of it. Yeah, sure. And I just couldn't help myself. I said, you know, the previous DA said that was not going to be possible, that it was going to be impossible to give me a, oh, well, I don't know why I'd say that. Sure. It'll be here waiting for you anytime you come in. So I came in and I got it. And, yeah, there's the details of what it was that Terry Wharton and Keith Heck said about he never touched him. He never touched him. What's the problem? It wasn't even touched, right? Keith Heck apparently can't just live with the fact of what he does and what he doesn't do, right? Because he's going to lie about it. It's a lie. It's a lie to the police. Okay, enough of that. So anyway, so I go down to see DA Mulkins, not to talk about this. You know, I got that already. And he's there he decided to include the deputy DA, really, Matt Corey, but he didn't say anything to me about it. Just was there, as a witness. Okay. So I started by asking him, I said, do you have any problem if I ask you about your salary, about what you get paid and where the money comes from? Because there's been a lot of details about that. And we spend about a quarter of our time crushing false rumors and trying to be sure that when we say things that it's right. Because just like you're not going to hear about Doreen Ferguson leaving today in the Courier or on KJO, just like you're not going to hear about the IVCDO getting another $25,000 for another goofy thing, okay? That's not going to be in the Courier. It's just not going to be there. You can find it here, and immediately. This happened today. So I said to him, the commissioners have said that you get 80% of your salary from the state and 20% of your salary from the county. Yeah. And I said, so when this thing came up with Simon Hare, and there was a question about who was going to look into it, the Grants Pass police did some investigation, and they decided to, they were instructed to, we're not quite sure about this, handed over to the Medford Police Department to look into Simon Hare and the stolen vehicle of his. And the Grants Pass police did a lot of investigation, and then they decided, after quite a bit of investigation, to give it up to Medford. So the Medford,
which is odd because it took place all in Grants Pass.
That's correct. So the Medford police looked into it, and they talked with Simon's friends, who said he was drunk, so drunk that they didn't want him to drive, and he kept trying to get to his vehicle, and they kept trying to not to let him get to his vehicle. There was no mention of how he finally got home by anybody. And so the Medford police, they did a lot of talking, and they sent a detective down to Simon's house to they kept trying to touch base with him to find out, to get more details about this stolen vehicle. And Simon just stiff-armed him, buddy. I mean, he just closed the door in the guy's face. I'm a busy executive, and I've got to get places. There's a parade coming up. I think that's what it was. And I got to be involved. Yeah, really? It wasn't that day. It was planning for it. I think it was a parade. Anyway, yeah, and he's promised to get in touch with them. Never did. According to the police. According to the police. So, the upshot
I think
of
I'll try that the next time they come to investigate me.
Yes. The upshot of this was, yes, that not because of that, but because of all the preponderance of the evidence, the official police report, which Mulkins says he's never seen. The official police report, their conclusion was Simon Hare lied, and he filed a false police report. Okay, now everybody stand back. There's going to be repercussions. Mike, what kind of repercussions were there for Simon Hare? Yeah. What kind of repercussions were there, buddy?
I'm still waiting. I just assume they're coming.
Yeah, there was nothing. So I said to this guy, I said, now, when you put those two things together,
that's what happens.
There are a number of people in the county who kind of felt like Simon Hare got away with this. Now, let me tell you the officious nature. I said this to go a little bit longer. The officious nature of Deputy DA Matt Corey. It was Ryan Mulkins who was the Deputy DA, I'm pretty sure, and now Matt Corey is. And Matt Corey stops me and he says, who says that they were upset about this and Simon Hare? I said, do you want a list of names and telephone numbers? That wasn't very polite. And he said, well, who says this? And I said, well, I think a number of people were upset. Well, he got elected, didn't he? And I said, yeah, but he didn't even get a majority of the vote. He still got elected without a majority of the vote. He says, well, we're not here to talk about the election. Now, I could have easily said, now, wait a minute, you just brought it up, and I'm responding to your question, counselor. I didn't. I let that go because there's other things to talk about, but that's kind of doesn't it seem? That's the kind of guy this Deputy DA is. This is Matt Corey. Really?
Yes. Well.
So yeah, I could have gone off on that, and maybe some of you would, but I thought, I've got other questions to ask, and this is the first time I met either one of these guys, and I'm going to be just a little gentler about it, but I mean, really, okay, this is how officious this guy is. So I say, when you add these together, I said, we try to squelch rumors when we can, but it kind of looks like if the commissioners continue paying you 20% of what you make, that's sort of like a get-out-of-jail-free card, isn't it? Because anytime a commissioner does anything, the DA's often going to say, well, we can't follow through with this because part of our DA salary is paid by the commissioners. Therefore, we'll never be able to follow through on what a commissioner does.
Yeah, because of some sort of conflict of interest. But the interesting thing is that in most other counties, the state pays 100% of their salary, and so this had Dale and I both wondering, well, wait a minute, how come we're picking up 20% of the salary? That isn't it. We're paying 20% over and above what they would ordinarily be paid. So they're getting a bonus for working in our backwater county here.
This is the part I didn't know. I didn't understand this. Now we know what the case, because the other guy, the previous guy, wouldn't talk at all on this subject. I mean, I couldn't even get my own police report out of the guy, right? Nothing. And this guy was like, well, sure. Okay, so what he explained to me is that, yes, it's true, 80% of his salary comes from the state. But in some places, that would be all that person would make. And so what Josephine County has done, Josephine County, hanging on by our fingernails, we decide to pay this guy 20% more,
yeah,
to keep him in this position. Really? Well, I said, okay, I didn't know that. So now you know. I said, but isn't the effect the same? Isn't it true, for whatever reason, that if the commissioners do something wrong, the DA is not going to be, feels he cannot be, involved in following through on anything with them?
Yeah.
And there's this long pause, and he says, well, yeah, that would be a conflict of interest, and because they don't like to talk about actual cases. They never like to talk about. Lawyers always say, we don't engage in any kind of theorizing. They do all the time. You know that they do. We never deal with hypotheticals. They're always dealing with, well, Mr. Witness, what if this and this? They're all, but this is the answer that they give us, okay? It's taught to them in school, so it's not like they're going to turn their back on everything that they learn. They're going to forget Younger's first law. No, they're not going to do any of that. They're going to remember all of this stuff. And so, at least he wasn't officious with me like the other guy was. And he said, well, yeah, that's to avoid the appearance of impropriety, we would turn it over to Jackson County or another county. While I'm in there with him, I thought, well, okay, I didn't know that, and I'm not going to say to the guy, well, you need to take an immediate 20% cut in your salary. It just didn't seem the time or place to do so. Although there are those of you who would, I know that. And one of them might be Jim Rossi. So Jim Rossi is involved in a fender bender in a bank parking lot. Now, keep in mind, I'm sitting with two people who do not want to talk about real cases, and they don't like hypotheticals. Now, what the heck are you supposed to do? So I said, well, let me just give you a scenario. And I kind of got a smile on my face because they should have known what I was talking about. So let's imagine a guy is in a bank parking lot, and there's a question about who was at fault. Jim Rossi, hope you're watching this, bud. And I said, so as it turns out, nobody had the sense on either side. This is the DA that brought the case, and then there's the defendant, which is Jim Rossi, and he's acting now as his own lawyer because he didn't like Jack Swift and the way he was treating him and the way he was defending him. Yeah, and one of the reasons he didn't care for what Jack Swift is doing, that he told me was Jim Rossi did, is that Jack should have asked for the bank parking lot. The bank has a camera on the park. Of course they do, on everybody that comes in and out. And neither the DA nor Jack Swift, according to Jim Rossi, Jack, asked for the videotape. And by the time they thought, gee, there's videotape. This might show us who did what. The videotape had been recorded over.
Mm.
Well,
You
Jim
would
Rossi.
think that in the modern era, you would think that that would be the first question one would ask.
Well, as a bank manager, knowing something's going on out there, I might decide, maybe we ought to preserve that. But that's not actually up to the bank. That's up to the DA's office to follow through with the evidence. Hello? And it's up to Jack Swift, or was. Now, according to Jim Rossi, Jack never did that. Oh, thanks, Jack, really. Oh, I'm going to hire you right away, buddy. So he fired the guy and acted in his own defense. So I'm sitting in the courtroom videotaping this, and something occurs to me. And I'm thinking, why the heck hasn't anybody said this? Now, if you go into a bank, or if you're at the drive-thru, okay, so let's suppose the camera's not working that day. What's one thing that the banks are going to keep as a record forever and ever and ever that might indicate to you who could possibly be an eyewitness to this? What's the one thing? And I mentioned this even to Jim, and I mentioned this to this DA and to the assistant DA, and they're like, well, I don't know.
Well, I would say the ATM records and the, probably the camera at the ATM machine.
Ding, ding, ding. You now are a better lawyer than all these big guys. Because I said, look, as people come up through the drive-thru, there's going to be a permanent record of who did what right down, I don't know, down to the second maybe, but at least down to the minute, and you ought to know who to contact that may have seen this. And why didn't you ask for that? Nobody asked for it? Nobody?
Yeah, it's a little odd.
Now, Jim Rossi had, because of the way the former DA, wanted to follow through with this, Jim Rossi was facing jail time. Really? For a fender bender? Yeah, it had devolved down to that. Jim Rossi was facing actual jail time. Well, this was hit and run. A hit and run? Right? And so it looked pretty bad for him. And so I said to these two guys, what would you do in a case like this? And they both said, well, I don't know. I never heard of this. I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing occurs to me. And well, Jim, I tried, okay, with the new DA. And we'll never, ever get a chance to ask the old DA what happened. In fact, we'll probably never find out what happened to the old DA. Why did he leave? Under what circumstances did this guy leave? Why did he suddenly pull up? So I think I got to wash my hair. Who knows why this guy left? We're never going to know. Did he leave because of the rumors for years of FBI looking into this guy? We don't know. We don't know. They're just rumors. Maybe none of that's true. Maybe he really did have to wash his hair. We don't know. Or as Rika Brown put it that time when Dave Toller was leaning with his ear up against Sandy Casanelli's door, obviously listening to her talking with a constituent, Rika Brown's answer was, well, maybe he was leaning up against the door with his ear because he had indigestion. That's all you'll ever need to know.
I'm gonna have to try that cure. Next time I have indigestion, I will lean up against the door and press my ear to it.
So I asked him a final question. I said, look, talk to me a little bit about the grand jury, because there have been a number of people who have said that, well, couldn't a grand jury have been convened about, I mean, isn't the role of a grand jury to sift through the evidence and see whether or not there's enough circumstantial evidence sometimes in order to pass on this thing, this case for potential prosecution of filing a false police report? And isn't it serious that a county commissioner would do this? And the officious guy says something like, I'm going to try to get this right, well, I never read that in the Courier. Mike, I'm the wrong guy to say that to. And I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, just to take that, have you ever read anything in the Courier about the cost overruns of the Demick Tower? No. Both of them say no. Cost overruns in the Demick Tower. I said, no, and you're not going to. Well, he said, well, okay, Joe. And I...
Jeez.
And I said...
He clearly does not know who you are.
I said... No, well, what do you mean cost overruns? I said, BadCounty.com. It's not going to be in the Courier. In fact, I told him, I said, I don't want to digress here too much. And Mike is saying, yeah, good luck with that. But I've even gotten up at weekly business sessions and said to Jim Moore in the room, Jim, when are you going to write a story about the cost overruns? You still haven't done so. I keep challenging you to write something, or at least write that there's a question about it. Never going to be in the Courier. Why? Speak a little bit there, would you, Mike, while I cough?
Well, I would say, I don't know. Why does the Courier not report that? Well, let's see here. I would say that is their bent. Their desire not to offend anyone downtown.
Well, it's certainly possible that if they report the news, that the commissioners won't talk to Jim Moore anymore, and then he will not be able to report the fake news.
Yes.
So we're the only ones. They're the only ones. Not only did we do exclusive story, we're two guys. Okay?
Two guys.
We come from a journalism background. We come from a radio background. I come from a TV background also. So we do know a little bit what we're doing. We're volunteering to do this. We're doing it on our own dime. We run the commercials for free. It's a non-commercial website, blah, blah, blah. We do all that kind of stuff, right? And we're up against highly paid executives, a committee, journalists, and they can't report the news. They won't report the news. They refuse to report some things which are news. And I don't mean Cheryl Walker scratches her nose. I mean news, right? Won't report it. So, okay, so I digressed. So I said to him, now look, so the question is about the grand jury. And he says, well, I don't know if you know this because you're a journalist, not a lawyer. Okay, on one hand, I'm saying, well, thank you. But on the other hand, this is kind of insulting a little bit. Yeah, okay. And he says, but the grand jury is only for, like, capital cases. Oh, yeah. See, I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe it's from watching movies, that if a county commissioner does something pretty awful, that maybe politically it's a good idea to have the grand jury look into it and decide whether anything needs to be done. But in this case, one person decides whether something needs to be done. The police have already, I mean, he's burned his bridges. He's too big for his britches, and he's burned his britches in front of the police because they're not going to believe him anymore because he lied to them. He shut the door in the detective's face. What kind of relationship? I'm entirely for law enforcement. That's why I lied to them.
Yeah.
Now, what are we going to do with this guy? And I said, there's a perception out there. Well, among who? Yeah, I'll get you the names and numbers any day now. There's a perception out there that this commissioner got away with it. There you go. That's who we have in office.